Hi, everybody, and welcome to day one of the Own Your Introversion Launchpad. This is a series that has been pretty much in the making for the last 3 months, and it's something that I'm really excited to be able to share with you today. Um, First and foremost, if you can hear me or if you can't hear me, drop me a comment over on the right hand side just to make sure that you're able to hear me. I actually have my mic plugged in, so we should be good to go. And if you are watching on the replay and you would like to add comments in the section, be sure to do that as well. Because I'll be monitoring all of this and be going from there in terms of if you have questions or comments or anything else that you would like to know that we could delve deeper into this week's content. So, first and foremost, I wanted to properly introduce myself. If you don't know who I am Kaylin Staten, and I am the CEO and founder of Hourglass Media. We are based in Huntington, West Virginia, but we have clients both in person as well as online clients too. So we're a nice blend in terms of the in-person and online spheres of influence and client bases and all of the fun things that we do. Hourglass Media unveils the hearts of stories through public relations, writing, and educational opportunities, much like this one. So I wanted to come to you today and just talk a little bit about the first two sections of the ebook, and I actually dropped it into the unit. So if you're unfamiliar with units, we are a social learning group. So that means that you can go in and look at units and just go in and watch the replay of this video, go in and download the sections that we'll be talking about today. And it's only a couple of different sections for today. I wanted to kind of split it up so you're not inundated with content. So today we have Lean Into Your Personality, which is one, and then we also have Use Emotional Intelligence. So if you haven't printed these out, go ahead and do so. Or you can also just kind of jot notes down either in a notebook or in a Google Doc or however you'd like to do it. We're pretty much, we're free spirits in the terms of whichever method works well for you. So, I wanted to also host this series right now because I feel like all of us are inundated with COVID-19 information. And a lot of us as communicators, or whichever sector you find yourself in, everybody is affected by this. And so we have information overload. And so a lot of that comes into, just being tired of hearing about it or dealing with it if you're on the front lines. And this is just a nice little break, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, either later today or later on in the week. Hopefully this will give you some insight and you'll be able to kind of have this introspective moment, because I think a lot of times we don't necessarily think about like the proper introspection, especially in terms of our careers and personal lives and things like that. So, and again, just want to encourage you to just drop in comments, anything that you would like to talk about, or if there's something that you want me to elaborate on. I actually have the copy of the ebook over here to my right. So if you see my eyes kind of dart a little bit, I'm just trying to make sure that we get all the information covered today. And so the official ebook is called The 10 Ways to Launch Introverted Communications Pros, Past Your Comfort Zones Guidebook. I created this in late 2019. I actually had this epiphany when I was kind of trying to relax, and I went through this phase of really liking this is really going to be weird of how this all came to be. I was actually playing the Kim Kardashian Hollywood game, which I've since had to give up because it ate way too much of my time. And I'm not even a huge Kardashian fan, but the game was really fun because you could create your own Hollywood persona and, do gigs and, play with these, all the fashion and all of the fun things that you would do in Hollywood. And so one of the I don't know if it was a quest, I don't know what it was, but it said Media Darling, an award or something. And so that's where I thought about kind of blending my specific brand of introversion. Really, it's more, I'm more of an ambivert at this point. So I'm a decade into my career. So I don't want this to be, just if you're like really, really introverted on the spectrum. This is also for people who are kind of middle of the road. And then, of course, if you're an extrovert, we obviously want to invite you into this group as well. So maybe you can understand kind of the minds of introverts, and then also extroverts have an introverted side. So just kind of trying to find that, especially now, because I know that, a lot of us are self-quarantined right now. A lot of us, may or may not have as many meetings, whether they're on Zoom or they're on Facebook, or, we're missing loved ones and friends and everything. So you're kind of struggling right now. So I think that, hopefully being able to own that introverted side of you will help extroverts as well. And of course, a lot of times, introverts kind of thrive in this self-quarantine moment in terms of you're able to sit and focus on work. You're able to, sit and write or read or watch TV. And so you're able to kind of own that introverted side of you. But first and foremost, I created Introverted Media Darling as a program of Hourglass Media because when I first started my career, I started out as a college student, and I noticed that a lot of my classmates were more extroverted, and as this 20-year-old in PR classes and other communications classes, that was very intimidating for me. And of course, the coursework taught us to, get out there and go basically sell sponsorships, sell an idea, not really physically sell them, but, just offer, these sponsorship packages to local businesses. And at the time, like, cold calling was kind of my worst nightmare. And even to this day, if I'm in a specific mood, like, I don't want to talk on the phone. So, and, my family and my husband can attest to that. So that's just part of the introverted part of me that still kind of lingers, especially, if we find ourselves in this hermit mentality. But I wanted to create this ebook and this overall program because I wanted introverts to feel comfortable in a PR related setting, because a lot of times we're told to be somebody else. I spent at least the first 5 years of my career really being somebody that I wasn't. And I had this PR mask, and I tried to be this perfectionistic PR person. And as a perfectionist by nature, of course, I took that and ran with it. And I wanted to do this just to give introverted PR and communications professionals that extra boost of confidence they need to know that they are actually doing something right, and that you can actually, do the things that extroverts do, but you can also put your own spin on it, and you can also kind of outreach and get past your comfort zone in a more comfortable way, but also to get you past that, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable too. So my story is, and I'll just do this a little bit, just a little bit brief, because I really want to get into the heart of the content. But as a little girl, I was painfully shy. And I would basically look to my parents anytime we were in a restaurant, and I would look to them and they would order my food for me because I was really, really bashful. And I started to outgrow that, obviously being in school. You talk with friends, you have to talk, in front of the class and do presentations. But I also do this program for the little girl version of me as well, because I'm very passionate about, trying to reconcile that part of my past, and, show her that, hey, you can grow up and you can, be an ambivert or an extrovert, or whoever you want to be. So just very briefly, I have been in public relations for 10 years. Like I said, I started out my career in nonprofit communications. That's why Hourglass Media has a heavily nonprofit sector slant, because I'm very, very passionate about helping nonprofits really get to the cores of their stories and be able to tell them in efficient ways, and also, kind of outreach to multiple sectors and try to, get donations, because there are specific causes that are very near and dear to my heart. I'm also a writer. I've been a writer since age 14. So I started in the journalism sector. Decided in college I didn't really want to be a journalist all the time. I didn't want to interview and go through kind of the monotony of that. I wanted a little bit more job variety, so I landed in PR. And so that's where I decided to live and work and all of that fun stuff. So I figured, I could blend writing and PR with my company. And so I did. And so in 2015, I started Hourglass Media. And so we recently celebrated our 5th-year anniversary, which I am super excited about and very thankful to have reached that milestone, regardless of not being able to officially celebrate because of self-quarantine. But, that's something that I'm very, very proud about and proud of. So hopefully that will be something that, if you're interested in owning a small business, whether it's online, in person, a blend of things, feel free to also drop that into the comments, or if you'd like to learn more about that. Okay, so getting into kind of some traits that you would have if you're an introvert. So I have this checklist in the actual ebook itself, and I'm going to read just a few of those. And if I can get my computer to actually look at it without having all this crazy Adobe stuff on the side. There are sometimes, as an introvert, that you crave that quiet time during the morning with your cup of coffee or something to read, or really that morning routine aspect of things. But you wish you could have it all day long. And you will skip a mixer or networking event if at all possible. There are times that you don't care to go to them, but there are times that you would rather sit at home with your cats and your husband and just sit and watch reruns of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is totally fine. So just finding that happy medium is something that I'm going to hopefully help you find. And you'd rather be seen and not heard. You're a really good listener and a really good observer. And you feel like you don't have to talk all of the time to really get your points noticed. And you love adventures, but you don't want them to become complicated. You want to, have adventures, but you kind of want to be a free spirit about it. And you crave deeper human connections. You want to have just a small group of friends versus a million acquaintances. And so you've probably noticed, if you're an introvert or an ambivert, you had these connections with people in high school. You were, friends with everybody, or, friends with people in different groups. But as you got older, you started to realize that these people probably were acquaintances and not technically friends in the grand scheme of the word. And so you really crave that human connection. You crave that, the deeper conversations that you can have with people. And that's one of the reasons why I started this group, is to kind of give you that environment, because we don't always have that as communicators, because it's, you're lumped in all together, which is totally fine, because you want to learn from people from all different walks of life and people in different sectors in public relations and communications. Or, you definitely want, that insight from people who are veterans of the field, or people who are new and just deciding, what young professionals need to hear. But this is a group where I really focus on, how, if you're introverted and you feel like you're, like I was as a little kid, bashful, then, this is kind of the group for you, where you can feel free to be yourself, and post all of the Baby Yoda memes that you want, and post, conversations with GIFs and, pop culture references and everything like that. That's something that, I obviously like to communicate in those types of ways. So I definitely understand that. So hopefully this will be a really good springboard into a community. And we're a small community now, but my hope is that once everybody gets to know that we're here, that they'll join and they'll be able to enjoy this type of content as well as other content that we'll be having. So I want to get into, because I want to keep these videos relatively short because I know that your time is valuable. I know that you're probably social distancing within 6 feet of other people, and you have kind of your work days are kind of weird right now, but you also, I value your time. And I know from my standpoint, especially as I get older and I get more into the public relations career, that you want these little nuggets of videos. You don't necessarily want to sit and listen to somebody talk for an hour. If we had multiple speakers, that would be a little bit different, but when it's just me, I want to try to keep it to about a half an hour at the most. So like I said, just to keep a note of the time and provide you that value and those nuggets of information without having all of that fluff that I feel like sometimes happens with different webinars or workshops or video series. So if you have downloaded the ebook, go ahead and pull that up, or if you have a printed copy, you can utilize that as well. And I'll just go over a little bit of the content of that. I'm not going to read it word for word. That's something that, you could go back and do. And that's something that, as the freebie, these video series that we'll have and this workshop that we'll be having this week just supplements a little bit. And it actually, I'll be doing the workbook with you. I've already kind of jotted down some ideas. And so just kind of explaining my thought processes to hopefully kickstart those and get those juices running. So as you brainstorm of, how you can own your introversion, this is how I did it, and this is my example. But feel free to definitely go down a different path because there's not a one size fits all mentality. And have a cat meowing as well, so I've had to actually close my door. You may have some cat appearances this week. Just, be full aware of that. I love animals, so I definitely, they'll probably be part of this workshop series. So as an introvert, and this is something like I said, I didn't do for a really long time, but the number one tip that I give is to lean into your personality. Don't resist it. And this is something that I wouldn't have achieved without the support of those around me, especially my husband, and especially through my own mental health journey and therapy and things like that. So a lot of this will probably have a mental health slant, and I know that that's probably hopefully going to be helpful during this time because I know a lot of us are struggling with anxiety, depression. Maybe it's an onset of symptoms that you've never felt before because of COVID-19, and so hopefully this will help you kind of rein in the parts of you that kind of can't really put into words or put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, and you can't really figure that part out. There are going to be times that you don't feel like you can open up to people. I'm trying to put my paper right there. You feel like you don't want to open up to people, like I said. You feel like you just kind of want to keep your heart on a shelf where nobody can see it. But what happens if people really resonate with you and your authenticity? And what happens if you wouldn't revoke that from the world and you actually leaned into it and owned it? That's what this workshop series is about. I know that it's not always easy to lean into your true self. That's something, like I said, that I've struggled with. Because as a perfectionist, I wanted to have that perfect journey, but your journey will not be perfect. You will pave your own yellow brick road. You can even have it to be a different color if you want. The opportunities are limitless. But hiding who you are does a disservice to not only you, but everybody that you come into contact with. So if you are a small business owner, it's, your clients, your partnerships you have within your communities. It's, the work that you do. Say you were a nonprofit communicator, or you were at the helm of a small nonprofit and you're a one person shop. If you don't own who you are, then that could prevent dollars from coming in the door. It could prevent you from having partnerships or funding grant money or different things like that. If you're so busy trying to resist yourself and resist your personality, that takes a lot of energy, like a lot. And I know this from experience because I've done this, gone down this, this path so many times in this cycle, that you owe it to yourself, not only as an introvert, but as a person, as a communicator, as a small business owner, or, the director of marketing for an organization, a corporate communications job, or like I said, a small nonprofit executive director or communicator, or wherever you find yourself, media representative or in that kind of walk of life. So that's the world needs the real you. Like, they don't need a carbon copy of what they see on Instagram. They don't need this perfect highlight reel of vacations, back when we could take them, of course. They need to see, if you do have struggles, like how, once you got through that struggle, how you ended up to the point of success or even failure, how you dealt with that. So I wanted to show you, and like I said, I actually went through, I didn't get to number 10, but we'll get to that as we go through them. Just take some time and, start jotting down 10 things that make you you and make you an introvert. And you can go back and do this a little bit later. Just jot down the first few that come to your mind, things that you can use in your work life starting today, and one way that you plan to showcase your personality for the world. So take just a minute or so, do that. Like I said, I'm not going to really allow for a ton of time because this is a kind of, as introverts, we like to do work kind of alone. We like to collaborate, but we also, we're very good at going at our own pace and doing our own work. And just to give you an idea, as you're writing, some things that, and I put some examples, 5 ways that I, in the ebook, 5 ways that I, utilize all of, my introversion. But I just wanted to write down some things today, as I'm in this mindset of remote working and all of that. I'm very fortunate to remote work at least half the time, and then have in-person meetings and events and things like that to go to. But one of the things that I've noticed, both in good and bad capacities, is the lack or the inclusion of empathetic leadership, especially during this time. I've noticed that there are people who are being completely empathetic and are, going above and beyond what their employees need in terms of crisis communications or things like that. And then I've also noticed some leaders and, some communicators completely drop the ball. So that's something that I felt like was something that personally I could bring to the table, because as an introvert, as somebody who wears her heart on her sleeve, it's something for me to completely own. That's something that I always haven't really owned, is being so tender-hearted, as my parents used to say that I was. So just, having that emotional intelligence, having that sentimentality, having listening skills and being a good listener and being an efficient communicator to know, kind of when something is amiss or something is, going the correct way. And then like using your introversion in terms of hobbies to implement those within your profession. And as communicators, we're natural storytellers anyway. We all just have different methods for doing that. And so for me, my strongest storytelling method is writing. And so I wanted to own that part of me professionally by getting into a profession that allowed me to write a lot. And although, sometimes you get writer's block or you get annoyed with maybe a subject matter and, you don't feel like writing, that's something that I do every single day. And it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And so that's how I really own that introverted part of me, because I can just sit here and, write 1,000 words and, feel completely accomplished. For other people, maybe you enjoy doing more videos like this. It's not my natural cup of tea, but it's something that, within this 10-year span of my career, I've learned to do. Just being live on the news, live radio broadcasts that are, blaring on speakers in the Walmart parking lot, and you have to hear yourself. As a natural introvert, like hearing my voice used to really, it used to kill me. And so just being able to kind of own the parts of you that aren't always, your favorite parts, that just include those on your list as well. And some other things that I put, of course, my mental health awareness and advocacy, my attention to detail, because I'm very detail oriented, almost to the fault of the big picture. Sometimes I would rather look at the details than the big picture. My patience and understanding, and then a particular set of values. So that's going to look differently for everybody. Everybody's going to have, a personal set of values and a professional, personal and professional, yes. And so, number 10, is just being a natural gift giver, because I can really tell what people like. So just being perceptive, I think, is a good attribute for an introvert. And like I said, you were going to find, different attributes than mine, and that is 100% okay. And, if you'd like to share those in the comments, feel free to kind of share those as well. And if you're watching the replay, just put hashtag replay so we can go back and know that you couldn't make it live, but you still wanted to contribute. That'll kind of help us as we go through and look at comments and things. And of course, if you're even watching this like a month down the road, feel free to comment as well. Okay, so number 2, also for the sake of time, this one was probably a little bit longer just because of the introduction and the reasons why I wanted to do this. And so we'll get more into the nuts and bolts of the workbook a little bit later on in other videos. But number 2, use emotional intelligence. You want to get inside your inner world. And for introverts, that is relatively easy, because we can escape into our own heads or in a book or a video game. And, that's where we feel most at home. But this is where you can really also lean into your personality, because you can use your emotional intelligence to really hone in on what your target audiences want. So whether you're doing an awareness campaign and you're, raising awareness on what your company does or your organization does, or you're actually, trying to pitch a product or a service to a target audience, this is where you can really appeal to their emotions without being invasive. Because I've also seen during the COVID-19 crisis and, communicators trying to get out there and small businesses trying to get out there, especially in an online capacity, and charging for services that are based on fear, which is a pain point, and you want to make sure that you're, showcasing and answering those pain points for your target audiences, but you also don't want to take advantage. So there's that fine line of not being fear-mongering. So that's just another thing, just a little tidbit that I feel like is very advantageous as you're looking at this. So emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So you definitely want to tune in the dial to your emotions instead of trying to revoke them from the world. And so you also want to use psychology for that as well. The definition is in the ebook. Obviously, most of us know what psychology is. And so we I gave examples in the ebook of how you can actually attempt to better communicate as an introvert and use emotional intelligence. So this comes from my journalist background as well. So just being a naturally inquisitive person, don't be afraid to use that natural curiosity and answer questions and ask questions that matter to you. Ask them in interviews and content, ask them to your target audiences. Focus on what motivates people's actions and their behaviors and their thoughts. It could be anything from money or fear, like I said before, or it could, just be, the pursuit of a better life for themselves and their families. It could be anything. So really sit down and focus and use that emotional intelligence to create a customer avatar. That's something that I always suggest to people. Sit down and really get into, their interests, their behaviors, their pain points, and really take the time to answer those questions. Also, this is very challenging a lot of times, especially if you find yourself in your own mental health journey, is to be present in the moment. A lot of us focus a lot on the past, or we sit there and look toward the future. And I always go back to the quote, and I'm not going to directly quote it, but in The Empire Strikes Back, when Yoda is talking to Luke Skywalker on Dagobah, and he's basically saying, like, hey, I watched you grow up. I saw you looking at the twin suns on Tatooine, and you were always just thinking of the future and not where you actually were, not that moment that was creating, that experience for you. So, like, actually sit there, focus on conversations, put your phone away, have eye contact with people. And especially now, we're all craving that human connection. So in your content, do whatever you can to provide that and to be present in the moment and to not have those distractions. Because one of the worst feelings in the world for an introvert is to open yourself up and try to have that deep conversation and to hit a brick wall with a person because you feel like he or she isn't listening. So I think that the more that we can listen and actually listen and not interrupt and, have these conversations that we so crave, then the better that we will be as communicators and introverts and just people within society, just as, basic humans that, want to do good in the world. And, utilize those skills that you wrote down for on your last workbook page, those 10 skills, or if you wrote more, if you wrote less, during your brainstorming session, either now or a little bit later, really sit down and think about how you can use your introverted skills for good, especially in the workplace. And it can be very situational. It can be, during the crisis communication stage that we're all finding ourselves in, or, it can be a different scenario. And so I recommend just kind of sitting there and thinking about, like, on an average day, this is what I would want, or in a crisis situation, this is how I would like to use my skills. And also, one of the things that if you find yourself in a leadership position, as I've often found myself in, is that recognize people when they do a job well done, because you can never underestimate the power of telling somebody thank you for doing something, or telling somebody good job, or, just a general small act of kindness like that. Because a lot of times I found in my career, different leaders not necessarily doing that. And so that's something that I always wanted to do as a leader, and hopefully I'm able to utilize that skill set. One thing I really like to do, and I learned this pretty early on in my career from one of my former supervisors, she would handwrite just different letters, different, handwritten cards to donors. And anytime that she saw media placement in, the newspaper or on a news channel or online, she would print that out and send it to them, and really, have that comment, or, whatever she would say would be really honed in on that, like, a congratulatory, very positive note. saying like, hey, I recognize you're doing all this good work. And so that just really cultivates donor relationships, and you can utilize that with anybody within your target audiences. Anytime that you can be human to another human, I think that that's really advantageous. And at the top of this, I use quotes throughout this, and of course I'm a Star Wars nerd, but Darth Vader, when he's talking to Luke and trying to get him to turn to the dark side so they can overpower the Emperor together, he says, search your feelings, you know it to be true. So, the second workbook page is how do you use emotional intelligence and or psychology in your workplace? Whether, you find yourself right now in an in-person environment, or hopefully you're able to work remotely. And then what is one thing that you haven't done that you would like to implement? You can also go back to your first workbook page with your traits that you have and say, like, I would like to be more empathetic. I would like to use my skill set to be a better storyteller, things like that. For me, I put that with PR, you can better read people and better communicate with them if you are actually trying to sell them an idea, or showcase an idea without trying to sell. Because salesy language really upsets me. I like to be as genuine as possible. Obviously, with Hourglass Media, and at the end of this session, we'll talk about a little bit about what we do and different ways if you would like to work with us. But my hope is to not be salesy. So that's one thing that, using emotional intelligence, I know that that's something that aggravates me. So it's something I don't want to do to other people. And so, and being a natural storyteller also uses emotional intelligence, because you know what resonates with audiences and how to communicate that, because you know your capabilities and you know their needs and wants as well. And then just, like I said before, one thing that I want to continue to do is just having that empathetic framework for people, and utilizing that, especially in regards to crisis communications, because you don't want to be tone deaf. I mean, we've all seen celebrities who have, not necessarily been the most respectful of what other people are going through right now. And I think that, the less that we can be tone deaf and the more that we can educate people, especially our spokespeople, I think that would be the best route for all of this to take. So take some time, fill this part out. You'll notice that I like to write with red pen. That is something that is just kind of a trademark of mine. So I'll be doing that probably all this week. Tomorrow's video will focus on, we will talk about taking extra time to prepare for things, especially if you're really uncomfortable about something like a live interview, or, just a big project that you've been working on forever and you really have to do a really good job. And we'll also try to talk about not being overly critical with yourself. So that's tomorrow's content. And like I said, we'll be dropping those into Unit 2, but this is Unit 1. And so you can go in on the group page. I'll be putting this video into the first unit rather. The workbook page is already there, as well as the link to download the ebook with everything, so you can print that all at once. My suggestion is not to really print out the cover page, because it will take a lot of ink, and as a small business owner, I like to save ink. So that's actually a reminder in the ebook, because if you don't want to do that, start with page 2. And so you'll get a little bit of my story. You'll get to, sit there and read through everything, and you can prepare, questions or comments, or, kind of work through it at your own pace as well. But we'll be doing 2 sections a day all this week. And so we have 2 down, 8 to go. And then we will, next Monday, which is April 13th, we actually will be doing kind of a recap. So I'll just kind of go over all of them. It'll be, more of a session of, like a Q&A if people want to tune in live. Or if you have questions, you can always email me, or you can access our contact us form on the website. All of that, all that information and how you connect with us is actually in the Introverted Media Darling Collective. So if you'd like to learn more, just, kind of browse the group. Be sure to invite people. Be sure to like the page so you can get notifications of when we go live and, when something new happens. And thank you for tuning in. I'm excited about this. I may not seem super excited today. Actually battling a kidney stone. So, yeah, I'm not feeling 100%, but I'm very, very passionate about this content, and I wanted to make sure to either have a pre-recorded video or to come at you live. Thankfully, I was able to do it live. And I will see you in tomorrow's video, and hopefully my hair will look a little better, because like all of you, we're not able to get our hair done at this point, so you don't know like the transformation that you're going to see with people. So it's definitely important to own your introversion and be kind and humane to people. So I will see you tomorrow, and I'll see you back here at 2 p.m. And if you have any questions, feel free again to drop them in the comments, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Have a good day.